Imagine waking up tomorrow with every memory from the last 3 years erased. Not just the big moments, every conversation, every place you visited, every meal you shared, every person you met. Gone. You'd still know your name, you'd still recognize your family, you'd still remember how to walk, speak, and read. But you wouldn't remember learning any of it. As impossible as that sounds, something remarkably similar has already happened to every one of us. Think about the first years of your life, your first laugh, your first birthday, your first steps, the first time you recognized your parents, the first time you felt comfort, fear, or excitement. Those moments shaped the person you are today. Yet for almost everyone, they're completely inaccessible. It's as though the opening chapters of your life were written in a language your adult mind can no longer read. Psychologists even have a name for this phenomenon: infantile amnesia. Most adults can remember little, if anything, from before the age of 3, and even those earliest memories are often scattered and incomplete. For more than a century, scientists have tried to answer one deceptively simple question: why? The first explanation seemed obvious. Perhaps babies simply couldn't form memories. After all, their brains were still developing. Without a mature brain, lasting memories shouldn't be possible. For years, that idea made perfect sense, until experiments began telling a very different story. Researchers discovered that babies recognize familiar faces within months of being born. They learn the sounds of their native language before they can say a single word. They notice routines. They anticipate familiar events. And when those routines suddenly change, they react, not because something feels strange, but because they remember how it was before. That changes everything. If babies can learn, and babies can remember, then the real mystery isn't why memories never formed, it's why they almost never survive into adulthood. To understand that, we first need to understand what a memory actually is. Most people imagine memories as tiny recordings stored somewhere inside the brain, like videos saved on a computer. Reality is far more complicated. Every experience is broken into pieces: the sights, the sounds, the emotions, the smells. Different parts of the brain process each of them separately. Only later are they woven together into a single memory you can consciously revisit. One small structure buried deep inside the brain plays a crucial role in that process. It's called the hippocampus. You can think of it as a master organizer, not storing every memory itself, but helping separate experiences become one complete event. Here's the problem. During your first years of life, the hippocampus is still developing. It's learning how to organize memories while the rest of the brain is changing at extraordinary speed. Imagine trying to organize an enormous library while thousands of new books arrive every hour and the shelves are constantly being rebuilt around you. Some books find a permanent place. Others become difficult to find. A few disappear into the chaos altogether. That's a useful way to think about the developing brain. Not broken, not defective, simply unfinished. But that still isn't the whole picture. In fact, many neuroscientists believe the brain's rapid growth may itself contribute to infantile amnesia. During early childhood, the brain produces and reorganizes enormous numbers of neural connections. This incredible flexibility, known as brain plasticity, allows children to learn faster than they ever will again. It's why young children absorb languages, social behavior, and new skills with astonishing speed. The trade-off may be that a brain changing this rapidly isn't an ideal place for preserving detailed autobiographical memories. Exactly how much this contributes is still an active area of research. Scientists don't agree on every detail, but most agree on one thing. The brain you had at 2 years old wasn't simply a smaller version of the brain you have today. It was a brain under constant reconstruction. And that explains one of the strangest paradoxes of childhood. The years when you learned the most became the years you remember the least. It's important to recognize that learning and remembering aren't the same thing. Think about riding a bicycle. You probably can't remember every tiny movement you made while learning to balance, but your brain kept the skill. The experience faded. The ability remained. Your earliest years seemed to work in a similar way. The lessons became permanent. The stories did not. But researchers believe biology is only part of the explanation. Another piece of the puzzle involves something we rarely think about: our sense of self. Right now, your life feels like one continuous story. You remember yesterday, you're living today. You're already making plans for tomorrow. Every experience belongs to the same person, you. But that feeling develops gradually. A young infant experiences hunger, comfort, sounds, and movement. Those experiences are real, yet they aren't necessarily organized into a personal narrative in the way an older child or adult experiences them. Developmental psychologists often demonstrate this with the famous mirror test. A small mark is secretly placed on a toddler's forehead before they're shown a mirror. Children younger than about 18 months often react as though they're looking at another child, but somewhere between 18 and 24 months, something remarkable begins to happen. Instead of reaching toward the reflection, they reach toward their own forehead. For perhaps the first time, they recognize the individual in the mirror as themselves. That emerging sense of identity appears around the same period when lasting autobiographical memories begin to become more common. It doesn't prove one causes the other, but many researchers believe they're closely connected. Then comes another major breakthrough: language. Words do far more than help us communicate. They help us organize experience. Think about your earliest clear memory. There's a good chance you can describe it as a story. Where you were, who was there, what happened, how you felt. Language gives memories structure. Without it, experiences may exist only as disconnected sensations and emotions. Once children begin talking, something else changes too. Adults begin asking questions. Do you remember the zoo? What was your favorite animal? Who came with us? Each conversation strengthens that memory, not by replaying it exactly as it happened, but by rebuilding it into a story that's easier to keep. Interestingly, researchers have found that culture also shapes this process. Some families encourage children to tell detailed stories about their own experiences. Others place greater emphasis on shared family history or community rather than individual events. Neither approach is right or wrong, but they can influence how early autobiographical memories are organized and later recalled. Memory isn't built by biology alone, it's shaped by experience, language, relationships, and culture. So what really happened to your earliest years? They weren't erased. They weren't meaningless, and they certainly weren't wasted. Those years became the foundation of everything that followed. Every language you understand, every habit you've developed, every instinctive emotional response, every relationship you've learned to build, your earliest experiences are still with you, just not in the form you expected. Perhaps we've been asking the wrong question. Instead of asking why you can't remember being a baby, perhaps we should ask how much of that baby is still living inside the person you are today. Because the child in those old photographs isn't someone you lost. They're the person who quietly built the mind reading these words. And maybe that's why those missing years feel so mysterious. Not because they're empty, but because they're everywhere, hidden inside every thought, every habit, and every memory that came after. The most important chapter of your life isn't the one you remember. It's the one that made remembering everything else possible.